Hello! This is the first episode of something I'm calling Quick Game Impressions. Since it's the first time I've done something like this, I'll explain a little bit about what these videos are going to be and why I'm doing them. The most important thing to know is that these videos aren't reviews like a lot of my other content. When I make a review, I believe it's important to experience everything a game has to offer, or at least all of the important parts. But the unintended side effect of that means that basically all of my reviews are very positive, because I rarely finish games that I don't enjoy, and I certainly don't have the patience to write a script and make a video about them. So that's why I decided to start this new series. Basically, it's going to be a very short video about a game that, for whatever reason, I don't plan on completing and making a full review of. Most of the time, it'll be games that I didn't enjoy or just don't have the motivation to finish, but were still interesting enough that I can talk about them a little bit. I'll just be sharing my early impressions and usually explain why I ended up dropping the game. So with that long explanation out of the way, it's time to talk about the first game on Quick Game Impressions, Neon Abyss. Neon Abyss is not a bad game at all. It's well made, albeit a bit generic in some ways. I didn't stop playing because of any glaring flaws. I stopped because of a bunch of very weird little design choices that made me not want to play after a couple of hours. But before talking about that, I'll give a brief overview on what Neon Abyss actually is and what the gameplay is like. Neon Abyss is a procedurally generated action platformer where you clear rooms of enemies, find new items and weapons that upgrade your character, and fight bosses on every floor. When you die, you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the first floor, but it isn't exactly a complete reset. There's a certain number of floors you have to get through to reach a manager, which acts as a final boss. If you beat that manager, you can challenge the next one, and it serves as sort of a checkpoint. There's also upgrades that you can unlock in between runs that give you a better chance at success. That's a very basic overview of the game, but it should be enough to explain my thoughts on it. There are definitely some things I like about Neon Abyss, so I'll go through a couple of those first. With a name like Neon Abyss, it's not surprising that the game doesn't take itself too seriously and goes for a more fun and stylish vibe. In that regard, it mostly succeeds. The enemies have interesting designs, and a lot of the guns are cool and unique. One of my favorite elements is the way different items stack on top of each other on your character, so you often end up looking ridiculous. The levels themselves aren't particularly interesting looking, but I suppose that's the limitation of being procedurally generated. The area you go after each run, called the bar, doesn't have very much to do, but I like having a sort of interlude between runs, and I like the design of it. The game's music gets a bit repetitive because you hear the same track so many times, but I still like it. Finding new items can be really exciting, and there's a good sense of progression as you get weapon upgrades that make you do more damage, or increase the size of bullets, or make you fire multiple bullets with every shot. Overall, the game is well made, and I'm sure some people could find a lot of enjoyment out of it. But there's also a few issues that made my experience worse and eventually led me to stop playing. The first thing I want to talk about is the incredibly simplistic core mechanics. With randomly generated games, it's very difficult to make the level design constantly unique and fresh because it's either incredibly simplistic or repeats a lot. So that leaves core mechanics, weapons and items, and enemy design to add depth to the game. When you start a run, you can move, jump, shoot your gun, and throw grenades, and that's it. The game adds to this in a couple different ways, but the main ones are items that do things like give you an extra jump or allow you to fly, and alternative characters. The problem I have is that they've taken out so much that even if you play a character that increases your base mechanics, you're still giving up a lot, and you're left to hope you randomly get an item that helps you. Want to be able to dodge roll? Well, I guess you can't carry more than one gun, or double jump because that's on a different character. Want to do something as simple as read an item description before picking it up? Well, then I guess you can't have any other movement options without randomly stumbling upon a good item. And the new characters take so long to unlock, so for the first couple hours I was stuck with the default ones with no movement abilities. The way you unlock characters is through a skill tree, which also has some problems, although it's more annoying than straight up bad. The problem with the skill tree is that the early upgrades are one-time use packs that give you a special item and also put the item into the possible loot pool for future runs. So you have to use up the one-time use items before unlocking permanent upgrades like new characters or vendors. This is frustrating for me because I would have rather saved these really powerful items until I was better at the game, or had already unlocked new characters. The skill tree is supposed to be a source of permanent upgrades in a game where you lose all your items when you die, and I guess the fact that the items get added to the loot pool could technically be seen as permanent, but there's so many items that it isn't likely that you'll ever find them. I've certainly never come across any of the items I unlocked after the one-time use. I'm not even trying to say that you should be able to use the item packs as many times as you want. I would just prefer if you had the ability to unlock the upgrades that are actually permanent without being forced to unlock the one-time use packs first. The last thing I want to mention is something that rarely happened to me, but it was incredibly annoying when it did. In most games of this type, you get a lot of items that make your character stronger, so you end up fighting tougher enemies, but your guns do more damage or you get cool abilities to help you. Neon Abyss is like this too, except that not all items are actually helpful. Most of them are, but there are a few that straight up hurt your chances of making it to the end. I only played the game for around 5 hours, and there were 2 instances where my run was made harder by an item that I picked up. First is an item that makes every coin explode 3 seconds after being dropped. This item made it much harder to earn money because it eliminated any coins that didn't drop right on top of me or at the very end of clearing a room. I don't really see any way that this item helps, it only made the run harder. The second one at least had some sort of beneficial effect, but it was still annoying. It was an item that made it so that anytime I unlocked a key there was a chance that I would get an extra bomb, or I would instantly explode and take damage. Given the option, I would gladly forgo the possibility of an extra grenade to avoid the possibility of taking damage every time I open a door or unlock a chest. But what makes it worse is that there's absolutely no way to drop items you don't want, and unless you're playing the only character that can read item descriptions, there's no way to know the item is harmful unless you've already seen it before. There was a very similar problem that was arguably even worse with the pet system the game uses, because you have no way of knowing if the pet will randomly hatch into one of the harmful ones like Jack or Peter. Peter is the worst, but in a recent update it looks like the developers are planning to fix it, so I won't hold it against the game. So yeah, unfortunately I just don't think Neon Abyss is the game for me. If you've got Game Pass and you don't have anything else to play, you might as well download it and try it out for yourself to see if you like it more than me. But if anything I mentioned sounds like it would bother you as much as it bothered me, it might not be worth spending money on. If you've played Neon Abyss, I'm interested in hearing anyone else's thoughts about it. Thanks for watching, let me know what you think of this first episode of Quick Game Impressions, and I will see you next time.